Hey guys, it is Friday, January 31st, 2020, and I had somebody ask several weeks ago on one of my videos for tips for dysphoria and specifically the sadness that comes with it. And I've sat on this one for a really long time. Like I said in my last video, I don't tend to get a lot of questions on this channel, and that one kind of was like, okay, I don't have a really quick, easy answer for you. So I kind of sat on it and have just been giving it some thought as I go through like day to day life. Um, how to kind of approach that question. So first and foremost, it's a difficult question to answer because everybody's dysphoria is different. So for me to give you tips on dysphoria, are we experiencing the same kind of dysphoria? Furthermore, do we have similar personality types? So coping mechanisms are going to be different for different people. So it's really hard for me to give advice on that, but I can tell you some things that I did in the past and some things that I do now if it comes up. So for those who don't quite know, dysphoria, when trans people talk about dysphoria, they're talking about gender dysphoria. Dysphoria is like the state of being completely ill at ease. It's the opposite of euphoria. So, it's looking at yourself and seeing things and feeling things about yourself that just make you absolutely feel like terrible. And so for trans people, that's related to our bodies and our preferred gender and stuff like that. There's a whole debate about whether or not you need dysphoria to be trans. I'm not going to get into that on this video. It's literally a different topic, and there's a lot of controversy around it. So, I've been on T for 5 years, and I'm 4.5 years post-op from top surgery. So, dysphoria for me now is really different than it used to be when I first came out and started testosterone. That's another reason it's hard for me to answer that question for you, because again, where are you in your transition? And again, what kind of dysphoria are you experiencing? So for me, early on, my dysphoria was mostly based on my chest and my voice. I already actually was very masculine in appearance. I had short hair, and depending on how I was dressed, I would often get referred to as male in public anyway before I even started T, and especially once I started binding. So, once I would start to speak, though, my voice was a little bit higher, and I had different speech patterns. There are male and female speech patterns, and so I would have a lot of stuff that, once I started to speak, people would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, was it ma'am?" And I've talked about it before. I would just very gently, kind of firmly correct them and be like, "Oh, you were right the first time," or "No, it's sir," or, "My name is Nick," or something. So, yeah, I go by Bear, but my first name is Nick. And sometimes to ease the confusion, because Bear is such a odd name and kind of clearly a nickname, sometimes if people are confused, I would just defer to Nick, which is very masculine. Anyway, so yeah, with the voice thing, I focused on male speech patterns. Guys tend to go down at the end of their sentences, and females tend to go up, where kind of things start to sound like a question. And I did a video on that with passing tips, and I'll probably link that into this video so you can see that. That might help you as well. Obviously, with my chest dysphoria, I dealt with that by binding. And again, the first time I put on a binder and passed in public, everything clicked, and I was just like, oh, this is obviously the right direction to go, because it made me feel so good about myself. And then obviously I had top surgery in 2015, and so my chest dysphoria is all but gone. Occasionally I'll feel my scars or something like that, and it's kind of a reminder that I went through that process. But for me, that doesn't bring me down. That's a matter of pride. And taking my shirt off at like the beach or in public or in communal changing rooms and stuff like that. Yeah, I've got scars there, and people do notice them. That I took really good care of them, so they're light, but people do notice them. People noticed them in basic training, and they'd ask about them, and I'd just be like, if I don't want to talk about my transition, I just say that I had to have, a couple of birth defects removed, which is kind of like a tongue-in-cheek little remark. It's actually not a lie, but it's not the full truth either, and I think it's kind of funny. So, that was my dysphoria. You might be dealing with other kinds of dysphoria. It could be, your hips. You might have, really feminine facial features or stuff like that. So find something that works for you, change up how you're presenting yourself in some way and see if you like it. I can't really give you good tips on that because I don't know what your dysphoria is. But moving forward, I occasionally do experience other kinds of dysphoria. I do have the wider feminine hips, and I've always had kind of the fat pads that go around the hips and like the rear end. There are shirts or pants that don't really work for me, and that's always a bummer. I'll go to try on, dress pants especially are not cut for people with my hip shape, and so I will go and try something on that you think is going to work for you and you think is going to be good, and then it doesn't fit right, and you will have that flash of kind of disappointment around that. For me, I kind of just push it out of the way for the most part. I've very rarely had moments where I just have to leave the store because I'm upset. I just kind of go and like look for a different cut or something that I know is going to work for me, or size up and then have them altered. I'm also really short, and so I do have moments of like quote unquote height dysphoria. I'm like 5'2". That, again with pants and stuff, I'm always going to have to factor in the cost of getting my pants hemmed. It costs $10. So I don't tend to buy like really expensive trousers because I'm going to spend $10 more to have them tailored, So I have done that with a couple of things that don't quite fit right in the hips. I've had pants let out at the waist, It's just kind of like being savvy with that stuff. The height dysphoria is funny because like I don't notice that I'm really short until I'm standing next to a really tall person, or like people will notice it in photographs. Like I had a picture taken of me and another person yesterday, and he saw the picture and he was like, wow, I didn't realize how much shorter you are than I am, so they don't notice it either. So I think some of dysphoria has to be, owning the fact that you are seeing things about yourself and you're really self-conscious about it, and other people might not even notice it. Yeah, I also get teased in a fun, like, good-natured kind of way. Especially with the military, there's a lot of like teasing, and that's a good thing. That shows that somebody likes you. And so people will point out that I'm like really short, and I'll just joke like, oh yeah, I compensate for it by like whatever, or whatever. I just own it. I just try to be playful about it instead of letting it get me down. So that's one of the ways that I deal with it. That may help you, it may not. I also still have some throwbacks to when my body was different. So in order to cover my chest when I was younger, because I developed what I felt were really large breasts fairly early on, I wore a lot of layers, as I think a lot of people do to cover up things that they don't like about their bodies. But more specifically, I really got into wearing vests and like sweater vests and stuff like that. I like that look now. That's something that it became a style for me. And so I still go to those things, not so much because I'm trying to hide my body, but because I like that look. So, for instance, when I'm going to a social function or something like that, I'll put on a shirt, a tie, and then a sweater vest or a vest on top of it. that's become my style, and it also helps me with those days that I'm not feeling super good about my body, or maybe just feeling a little bit down about my situation. Um, I'll try to dress in a really dapper way. I'll really focus on putting together, like, an outfit that I really like. And what happens when you present yourself in that way is that people will notice it, and people will often comment on it, you know, and they'll be like, "Oh, you look really nice today," or somebody will say, "You look really dapper or handsome," which are male oriented words, they're masculine words. And so when people do that, when they notice that you look good or you look masculine and they point it out to you, it will make you feel good. So that may help you. It definitely helps me. Um, as far as dysphoria now, again, I've been on T for a really long time, but I still really don't like wearing tank tops, and I don't like wearing anything that's like low cut. Or if I wear a button down shirt, I almost always go to the second to top button, and people have pointed out, they're like, "Hey, you can go one more button down, you could open that button and go down to the one like right here." I don't like that. Even though my breasts are gone and I have a masculine chest, I still don't like that feeling of having anything open. I don't like v-neck shirts. I don't like tank tops. My partner loves tank tops, and was ordering a tank top for Pride. And I was like, "Oh man, I really like that design. Can you order me a t-shirt instead of a tank top?" And then I cut the sleeves off. I was still covered here, and tank tops tend to cut in here, and that it's just too revealing. I just don't like having that much skin showing. And he kind of was like, "I could have ordered you a tank top. You cut the sleeves off." Totally different thing. To cut the sleeves off of a t-shirt and make it into like a muscle shirt or like a gym shirt, totally different thing for me. So yeah, I still am affected by those things that bothered me before. Even though my body is different and I like my body now. It's just you grow to like and know a certain thing. So those are the things that I did as far as my dysphoria. Those are the things that I dealt with and still continue to deal with. If those tips help you, that's really great. If you have further questions, go ahead and hit me up again. And then lastly, I would highly suggest, that if your dysphoria leads to any kind of like symptoms of depression and stuff like that, try to get yourself out of that space. I know that it's something that people don't like to be told. I sometimes don't like advice that I know is actually good for me, but when you are feeling really down and you already are kind of like unhappy with this right here, being locked in this space without external stimulus, it can make it worse. So for me, that was a matter of getting myself out, getting myself to a martial arts class maybe, or being active in some other way. I also really like board games and stuff like that, and there's places you can go where they have gaming nights. Something that's just different from the environment that you're kind of like in, which can continue to hamper your mood. So as far as the sadness that comes along with dysphoria, whatever it is that works for you, that makes you happy in those moments where you're getting bummed out from your dysphoria, try to go do one of those things. Being active and physically active isn't for everybody, and it's not possible for everybody, but that is really good to shake yourself out of funks, especially because being active actually releases endorphins, which is a happy chemical for your brain. So not only are you getting out of your space, getting out of your headspace, but you're also actually going to be working to chemically alter your mood. That doesn't work for everybody. A lot of people have, anxiety about going out and being in public, going to the gym. What if somebody else is watching me and stuff like that? We live in a day and age where people video people at the gym, and that drives me absolutely insane. I think that's terrible. But that might be a challenge for you. It's a challenge for me sometimes. I go to the gym and I'm like, I don't know how to use this thing, and I get a little shy. So, yeah, highly suggest getting yourself out of your space, and finding that thing that works for you, whatever that is. It's possibly different from what works for me. Good luck. Thanks for listening. See you next time.